Oh hey, didn't see you there. Well, it's about midway through August, which is about the time when schools restart here in the States, and that includes the pinnacle of academia, the second largest source of debt in America. And believe it or not, I was once a college student once. Okay, I guess it would be easier to not believe that. I mean, I'm just stuck here in this void making YouTube videos about anime. But trust me, I did go to college. And there, I learned a lot of things. Mostly about the horrors of public transport and disappointing my parents, but I did learn other stuff too. In my days as a student at college university for passable learning, I found that one of the more important things to do is to find a way to relax and de-stress from classwork. Time to have an existential crisis. Yes, even in college, I never stopped watching anime. Would probably explain some of my grades. And in that unique period of time, I got to experience shows I feel like wouldn't have had as potent an effect on me if I saw them earlier or later in life. So that's what we're looking at today, or rather listing. Yeah, it's been a while since the first list, and I feel like enough time's passed to take another swing at it. Translation? I just want to do it, okay? College is a unique experience that millions of people uniquely experience. So I compiled a list of 10 unique anime for you millions of college folks out there to experience uniquely for yourselves. Can you tell I minored in English? But seriously, I honestly had this idea in my brain for a while and looked back on some shows I watched when I arguably needed to. And when it came down to it, I narrowed about 10 shows I believe are prime real estate for college students to watch in their free time, if that even exists anymore. Not just for the entertainment value, but on the aspect that these anime also help guide the sort of idealization for the collegiate life, whether it be career-wise, philosophy-wise, or a change in tune in how one can see things. With that said, I did have a few general rules to abide by for this list. First, shows that can be reasonably consumed, aka those that aren't over 50 or 100 episodes long. After all, you're still gonna be busy with schoolwork and such, so it wouldn't make a lot of sense to commit to lengthy stories. Ironic coming from a guy who started One Piece in his first year. Why was Dressrosa so long? I had classes in the morning. And the rest of the semester. Secondly, I'm looking at these shows as if they were best consumed during the college life. So while something like Cowboy Bebop's great for college students to watch, so is everyone else. Bebop is a show I think just about everyone, teen and up, can absorb on a level field. These shows have a distinct understanding of a demographic or idea thus suitable for this particular age group. And third, this is more of a disclaimer, but this is all my opinion. I will very likely not have the same list as everyone else. Not that I think anyone has a list like this anyhow. But just to reiterate, it's okay if you have your own thoughts on the matter with your own shows in mind. These are just my thoughts and mine alone. I'm also gonna note that I didn't see all these shows while I was wasting my Maigoinu degree. Some of them I watched before, some of them I watched after. But after having seen them, I do strongly believe they are fair for the list, as if I did see them during my life on campus. Well, with all that said, this is my top 10 anime to watch in college. Number 10. Grand Blue. Yeah, a show about college students for college students. Who would have thought? This is probably one of the safer and more predictable anime I could have chosen for this list, but I do have a good reason for it. It's funny. If you were to look up a random clip of this show on YouTube, you might be met with hilarity or a serious case of the what the fucks for how crude and crazy the sense of humor is. And if you had no idea what it was, with only that clip in mind, you'd probably have a tough time believing this is a show about diving. And despite that, that's beyond the true depths of this show's believability. The story follows Iori, a new freshman at university who moved with his uncle's family looking forward to a great college life. However, he's met with the rambunctious and borderline insane members of the local diving club, who basically party and drink anytime they can. Reasonably not wanting to get involved, he tries to distance himself from them despite them occupying his home most of the time. But it's not long after that he's forced to join anyway. Thus begins his unsettled life surrounded by drunkards, weirdos, and his cousin, who thinks he's just as bad to get influenced by this crowd. Yeah, this is a show that's not particularly realistic because, my god, it'd be concerning if it was. But it's a great absurdist comedy on the aspect of youth and college life. The sheer insanity of the show is that it's dredged in a semi-realist outlook while also cranking the bizarre to inane proportions. This works out well for a lot of comedies where there's a straight man or two and everyone else is some form of mentally ill. Iori and his cousin work well as outsiders peering into this estate of psychopathy, while also hilariously falling into similar circumstances from time to time, all while keeping in mind that the core idea of the show is about scuba diving. Like, I can't help but feel that water-based activities and alcohol don't mix well. I don't know, call me a wet blanket, but at least I'm not actively trying to kill someone. Unless that wetness is vodka. The show is an acquired taste, and requires some level of acknowledging how absurd all of it is. Like, how is no one's liver absolutely obliterated by the end of the show? Not every joke hits its mark, and there are occasional bits that border uncomfortable and unfunny, to which if someone couldn't get into it, is completely understandable, which is why it's as low as it is here. But it does paint a picture of this stage in life that wants to celebrate being young and able to do things while you can. And again, if this is your sense of humor or you open up to it a bit, it's really darn funny. I won't pretend it's the pinnacle of comedy, but if you want to feel like a party animal without killing your internal organs, this is a show great for going off the deep end. Number 9. Waterkoi. This is another comedy, one that's more down to earth and family friendly, though it's more suited to be viewed by young adults and older for the fact that it's a workplace comedy. It's also one that's more contained in its presentation, but just as flamboyant in its delivery. And personally, it's one of the more relatable anime comedies, because it covers two seemingly universal lifestyles, otaku culture and a job that slowly kills you. Narumi is a closet nerd and an open office lady who starts at a brand new company, where she coincidentally reunites with her deadpan childhood friend Hirotaka. Trying to keep her hobbies a secret, she can only truly open and vent to Hiro during their gaming dinner sessions. In a similar fashion, Hirotaka watches out for his less experienced coworker while carefree about his surroundings during gaming anywhere. In the spur of the moment kind of question during dinner, he asks her if she wants to try dating, thus the office romance between two otaku begins to bloom. For as funny and relatable the comedy is, I think what stands out to me is how grounded and organic the chemistry is between the two main leads. It's a game of opposites with these two. One's a cheery extrovert, the other's a stoic introvert. One's more into anime and manga, the other's more of a gamer. One's awkward about her interests, and the other doesn't give a damn who knows he's a no-life. In a way, they represent the two sides of nerdism well, those being the side of hiding their love to avoid social stigma, and the side of just not caring who knows. And they work with these attitudes in fun, albeit slightly exaggerated means. The relationship itself is a genuine one, where they can be equally as open and honest with each other. It's not smothered in the suffocating sweetness or drenched in the Taoist cynicism. It just hits a mark of being realist and grounded with sprinkles of the classic humor that comes with two nerds dating. For college students, it's another fine comedy to unwind to, as there's not a ton of drama to get too invested in, and has likable, simple characters to follow. If I did have to falter a bit, I wish there was a little more insight on the working aspect of the show, as it mostly feels like a group of friends hanging out much of the time. But on the flip side, it's a funny group of friends, and they still act mostly like adults who need to pay bills. I also wish it was a little more realistic on the hobby side of things. Like, there's no way these functioning white-collar workers have this much free time for all the media they consume. I mean, it's the dream, but there's no place for dreams in a working environment. Add in some neat cameos and references here and there, and there's a little to like in this show whether you're a hardcore veteran or a fledgling weeb. For Waterkoi, it's a nice distraction for college students to indulge in a little dream of having a partner who shares your interests and a seemingly free job, and hopefully that comes to life for some of you. Number 8. Genshiken. Yeah, this is another show about college students for college students, and you could argue it's the quintessential show for that because it's very reminiscent of the college atmosphere and mood. Furthermore, it has a cool glimpse on otaku culture in the early 2000s, as well as well-done scenes in addressing the difficulties of relationships and balancing college and private lives. So why is it this low on the list? Well, my reasoning is so simple, it might actually be dumb, but I'll get to that. Genshiken follows the Genshiken Club. It actually stands for a long name I'm not gonna attempt to pronounce, and it's not really that important, so moving on. Here, the members revel in discussing what else but anime, and how it influences their ideals and the society around them. The girlfriend of one of the members has a tough time understanding this social parasitic hobby and only attempts to hang with her partner. Over the course of the series, she and the other members of Genshi can learn from each other how shame is a social construct and is proud to be found in having a passion. This is a well-defined show on many levels. For one, like I said, it's a good periscope into the social circle of otaku life in the 2000s, as while it had its stigmatic parts to it, it largely persevered. On that note, there's a good glimpse in the actual attitudes of that period, as characters like Kanji, Saki, and Madarame have these distinct personalities representative of the various outlooks on culture and society as a whole. They're not particularly strongly written, but they showcase numerous facets to this style of life. And lastly, it's not devoid of substance, rather there's a compelling amount of drama and subjectivity to it. For as humorous as the show presents itself, there's still a flowing narrative that these are college kids, and they have their faults and wishes for their futures as much as any other. And they spotlight those perspectives in mundane, funny, cold, hyper, bold, contained ways that elevate the pros of continuing to adulthood. And if this wasn't a list shoved full of my own biases, it'd probably be in the top 2 or 3. It's really that good in projecting college in a great story. So why isn't it? Well, this is probably a dumb reason, but I just think the next 7 spots are better shows. Yeah, I mean, this one's great for college students, but overall, so are the next shows I'm about to list, and they're just better. It's really that simple. I'll also say that it is a slow burn, even for slow burns, so it's not as easy to digest in a quick manner. So maybe that'll be my excuse. Regardless, it's still a great anime that, should you check it out, may ultimately leave you inspired in cultured mundanity. Number 7. Aka, 13 Territory Inspection Department. This is a great show for college students because it's about a subject matter every college student loves to hear about: bureaucracy. In terms of political dramas that take place in a relatively modern era, Aka is one of the more forgotten ones, despite it only being 7 years old. Who am I kidding? That's practically middle age for most shows nowadays. But let me tell you, this shit is fire. It's a madhouse production with a cool style and an intriguing plot about internal government conspiracies and civil unrest, with a main character who looks so done with everything. And if that's not the college student experience, I don't know what is. In a nation of 13 states lie the 13 civil servant departments of Aka, which is basically a mix between the CIA, FBI, and the INR, as they keep the other 12 Aka departments in check to protect their own state and ultimately the country. Gene Otis is a member of Aka's inspection department, and it's his job to act as the intelligence liaison between his subordinates and his higher-ups. But for as lackadaisical as he acts, he's actually a highly intelligent man, much so that people don't know what he's actually thinking. This comes ahead when he's tasked to discreetly uncover a potential coup d'etat scheme other government official thinks he's a part of. With his cigarettes in hand and the hopeful sister not knowing of the situation, Gene sets out to smoke out the true plot that threatens his unassuming days. Unlike the last 3, this one's not a comedy, if you couldn't tell. In fact, the funniest line in the show is probably in the opening, but don't let that stop you from experiencing a heck of a ride. I can't help but feel that this is a show right up an average college student's alley, as it's all about conspiracy and the wits to outsmart them. There's a dual weightedness to how it presents its story as a style plot of order versus chaos, and the means to present them through the psyche of Gene and his calculating demeanor. It's a constant mental exercise to figure the ins and outs of this government, but it's not restrained in only working as a mystery plot. Atmospherically, it leans towards the fitting drama in a serene pace that helps you absorb what's going on in a roundabout but consistent way. Plus, the animation is incredibly stylized, having a 50s aesthetic to it while animated very cleanly and smoothly, like any other modern show. I had half an expectation to see a high-definition motion squirrel running around somewhere. Simply put, it's an anime that knows its target audiences wants, because there's a ton of other shows like it. There's rich dialogue, sharp characters to follow, a well-planned execution of story, and a detailed and colorful look to all of it. Inspect it for yourself if you're up for the task.
What?
Number 6. Katanagatari and Samurai Champloo. Yeah, I know it's a cop-out to have two shows in one spot, but they're really similar and two deserving for a place that I may as well have made this a top 11 list. Not that I don't like going one step beyond, but even then, I struggle to put either one over the other. So here you go, 2 for 1. On the surface, these are very similar in presentation and story sort of, that there is a degree of reasonable comparisons to make. But if you think they're practically the same, I have a refrigerator to sell you. Katana Gatsu is about a swordless samurai who's asked for help by a shogun's subordinate to gather 12 swords scattered around Japan in order to save the country from the evil persons who wield them. Samurai Champloo follows the journey of 3 vagrants looking for a certain swordsman who smells like sunflowers, all while encountering their own slew of problems and worthy opponents alike. For as far-reaching and cinematically important the widely renowned and well-known samurai looking for something genre is, even for these shows, they're pretty similar in setup. In that, they're rather similar in runtime too. Samurai Champloo has 26 episodes, yes, versus Katana Gatsu's 12, but each of those 12 episodes are an hour long. But outside of that, they're anything but the same in story, style, design, and even philosophy. Katana Gatsu's search for the swords is allegorical to the search for various mentalities and views of life, and is told in the means of colorful and stylized cinematography. There's a nice chemistry between the two main characters as they continue to grow as partners, learning one another's strengths and weaknesses and as a couple, adjusting to a profound sentimentality neither are quite used to yet. Samurai Champloo is a rough and tumble brawl with precise moves and sharp instinctual camera cuts and upbeat energetic hip-hop music with its overall motifs bearing on the side of fighting for might and freedom. These characters are akin to a group of outcasts with a single goal in mind, but are equally privy to each other's moods and feelings, slowly getting to know each other. Katana Gatsu is hilarious in the story structure, almost being trollish and diverting expectations in the strangest ways possible, while Samurai Champloo is bare bones and direct in a cynical, anti-authoritative way. For anyone who'd like to check them out, they're really good in what they do. One's of the journey toward finding inner discipline, the other's about the continued fight for independence. Katana Gatsu is a Kurosawa film, while Champloo is a Tarantino flick. And that's why I can't place one over the other. They're almost made for each other in how opposite they are. And it's all brought together in one universal truth. Swords are fucking cool. Whether you watch one or both, just know that the stories you experience will cut deeper than you'd expect. Number 5. Goodbye Mr. Despair. Hoo boy, there's really only 3 words to describe this show. What a ride. Who knew depression and the ever-encroaching stranglehold on social and mental constructs in the modern world could be so funny? That was a hypothetical, but I like the enthusiasm. Goodbye Mr. Despair is a really dark comedy. And my god, if you're not prepared to hear one of the most batshit insane summaries I've done, get ready. This makes a David Lynch film seem cohesive. The very first scene of the show is that of the main character attempting to hang himself. Yeah. He's saved by a girl named Kafka who lectures him that him dying would ruin the beautiful sight of the Sakura trees. In a quirky turn of events, trust me, that's the least hyperbolic word for this, it turns out he's to lecture her, as he's her new homeroom teacher. Well, that's not the end of his worries as he, Itoshiki, quickly finds out that just about every student in his class is some sort of sociopath or weirdo. There's a girl absolutely obsessed with cleanliness and order, there's another one covered in bandages with horrifying implications and a collection of animal tales, and a girl who's just a stalker, just to name a few. Through his nihilistic pessimism, he teaches the kids of the values of never getting their hopes up, questioning their own self-worth in the eyes of society, and the meaninglessness of looking forward to an uncertain future. Again, this is a comedy. This might just be my cynical side of my college days, but this is one of the few shows that resonated with me on a writing standpoint. Not because its dark humor and down tone was so, yeah man, anti-establishment and stuff, but because the juxtaposition of its themes was profoundly approachable. The comedy is dark and unrelenting in how it portrays social taboos and mental fortitudes towards them. There's some really thoughtful commentary on the satirization of technology addiction, domestic abuse, hikikomoriism, immigration. It's as thought-provoking as it is surprising that they went there to such an extent. Pair this with an immovable despair in Itoshiki's teaching philosophy versus Kafka's unstoppable optimism in all things, that there's at least 3 unique perspectives to take into consideration when addressing these issues. It's really clever and subtle in messaging that way because the comedy is just so far out there that it makes you laugh, then it makes you think. I highly recommend you check it out, even if you aren't a college student because of this. Or I would if it was readily available on a legal streaming platform. And if you're wondering where I got the footage for this segment of the video, oh, the irony of a possible subject matter to cover for a show that can't cover it. Well, however you find it, let it guide you through the lifestyle of eternally seeing everything in despair. In a good way. Number 4. Delicious in Dungeon. I don't care if this show just came out and this is my recency bias, this show absolutely cooks. Have you ever wondered what would happen if the Fellowship actually chased after the Balrog after dragging Gandalf to the depths of Selvatine, and on the way they continued to have 2nd, 3rd, and 20th breakfast? No, of course you haven't. That sounds utterly asinine, and borderline idiotic in the hands of anyone other than Tolkien himself. Well, too bad, they made a show about it. And it's written not by the Hobbit master, but by someone equally as talented in world building. Following a devastating defeat by a red dragon that resulted in his sister being eaten, the leader of an explorers party resolves to head back into the dungeon in hopes to save her from digestion. But low on funds and resources, Laios urges his other party members to retreat and cut the losses. But determined to get their friend back too, Marcel the Mage and Cho-Chuk the Picklock steel themselves to venture in too. On the issue of not having food, they soon meet a dwarven resident of the dungeon named Senshi, who's an expert in cooking the odd cuisine of dungeon food. After he's conscripted to the party, it's up to Laios and friends to save their friend one floor and one monstrous meal at a time. Despite this not being a show I saw in college, I was instantly transported back to those hunger-filled days watching it, scrounging out what I could on a limited budget and making sure I got my fill. But just because it gives the college experience in fantasy format doesn't make it perfect for shoving it down your gullet. What makes it perfect is the absolute comfort and imagination that goes into it. From a cooking aspect, there's a ton of creativity and fun in making these dishes, from getting the ingredients to the uses of their tools as cooking utensils. The adventuring's just as fun, where the skirmishes with the various monsters of the dungeon are framed in well-shot angles and uniquely fought with the circumstances of the environment. By all accounts, this is a lively, booming show full of zeal and zest because of how active and even political the world is. But the true stars of the show are the stars of the show. These are fun people to hang around because they truly feel like people. They have a moving camaraderie among each other that trusts everyone's instincts, but also have the complexity to acknowledge that this is still a job. I always flipped deciding who my favorite character was among these dorks because they're all super funny and likable. And the narrative parts of the story, those that elevate the characters' motives and growth, are just as compelling. In the unique situation of being adventurers in the dungeon, there are interesting truths and personal histories to confront. Those of inferiority complexes, survivor's guilt, PTSD. They're treated with such great care and respect because they come from a place of being human. And I know it's not over yet. With a 2nd season confirmed, it could potentially turn to crap for whatever reasons. But I'm going to reject that pessimism because Sumika does the 2nd opening. Nothing bad ever happens when they're involved. It's a fine cooking show to eat up, but it's a better adventurous tale to head to the depth with. Number 3. Welcome to the NHK. If you thought Goodbye Mr. Despair was too much of an acid trip into the depressing, may I interest you in half the dosage for twice the depression? Welcome to the NHK is a psychological dramedy that addresses a surprisingly controversial idea in the world. Take mental health seriously. It'd be one thing to be a preachy asshole like I was just now, but I truly feel that this is the best show to actually talk about the issues of mental health in the college demographic. It's as thoughtful in that regard as it is funny. Sato is a shuddering college dropout who, over the years, developed a paranoid fear of the NHK, which if you don't know is a television broadcasting corporation. But to him, it's a secretive organization that's bent on growing the masses by making everyone fearful shudders like him. One day, he meets a girl named Misaki who offers to help him get over his fears in a sort of community charity project. After initially rejecting her, he eventually comes around and together, they slowly tread the road to recovery one hallucination at a time. So, Welcome to the NHK is one of those shows that's hard to describe for how real and sort of general it is. It's a show that's really best to just take in on its own, and it works well as this piece of media that has equal parts smart commentary and a silly sense of dark humor. The meat of the show are those issues in addressing mental health, like anxiety, depression, and fear brought on by isolation. Remember the mental health crisis during the pandemic? Yeah, that's a key topic in an anime that predates it by 13 years. I can understand that too. After all, I've been trapped in this YouTube void for almost 2 years now. There's a good deal of thought and theming in how it presents these topics, as we do see a glimpse of Sato's life through his obsession with escapism and the dread of his uncertain future. It's all taken from real-life philosophies and existentialism that I, and I'm sure some of you at some point, have wondered too. And the culture of the whole ordeal is presented in a similar fashion, where you can see the highlights and lowlights, I guess, of hikikomoriism, otaku culture, and gaming. But like I said, it is still a comedy. A dark comedy whose implications often match that of Mr. Despair's, which, if you'll remember, started off with a suicide attempt. And yeah, there's another warning here, because that's also present in this show too, so be aware. Really, there's little I can say about it that can't stand up to the subtle cleverness when actually watching for yourself. So go do that, if you want anyway. Number 2. The Tatami Galaxy. So this is another safe pick for the list, as it's pretty common to cite when talking about a show set in college. But in my actual opinion, it's more deserving of that conversation. A nameless protagonist is a university student disillusioned by his lacking college life. Episodically, he recalls his time as a freshman looking for his ideal social circle, as he continually gets into trouble with either a devilish peer or his own high expectations. In the meantime, he's also seeking the eye of his crush and the validation of his choices, usually tumbling in his oversights. Now a third year, he looks back on his follies to wonder where he went astray, what he learned from them, and to gain insight on a potential new galaxy beyond his tatami room. This is a fast show, and I don't mean it goes by fast as in 20 minutes feels like 5. No, I mean the dialogue is fast. They talk like they took 5 shots of espresso before each recording session, and they just hammered out 50 lines without a breath. For how quickly the script is dispensed in every episode, it's honestly incredible that not only is it comprehensible, but it's also really smart and toned down in its run to being the thoughts of someone who's actually looking back on life. There's a solid catharsis in the main character being able to organize and relay his narration in a well-examined execution. And you really feel for this guy as he's trying his best to make his life fun, but can also acknowledge where he goes wrong. Stylistically, well, just look at this. This is just a unique look for a show like this, that's only meant to be a sort of diary of a typical college student, and they pull it off as a weird, artsy, exaggerated telling in this animation of strange cuts and angles. The formula is great too, as it's telling you their vast experiences meld in a sort of cruel cycle, but do ultimately have purpose for growth of education. He learns of how to move on, how to properly hold himself, how to restrain himself. I don't know, there's a good lesson or two to find in there for anyone watching. Really, it's the closest thing to perfect of a show for college students to really get into. It's honestly a crime that is not easily accessible, at least here in the States. Well, luckily, I know how to commit a crime or two myself. Not that that's an admission to anything. Got it? The Tatami Galaxy, a great speedy show for the great speedy life of college. And the number 1 anime to watch in college is A Place Further Than the Universe. Do I even have to explain why? I guess I do, that's kind of the point. A Place Further Than the Universe is the quintessential don't give up on yourself or your dreams story. And yes, that is 100% my bias, but I do have a reason for it. What could have been a simple cute girls do cute things show turned out to be an amazing work of art in showing the perseverance and strength in achieving the implausible and taking the world by the reins. It's my favorite show of all time, and it's one I vividly remember when I first saw it in the community college hallway. I've already talked about this show and why it's great in my November review of it, so I urge you to watch that to get my full opinion on it. But to keep it general, Mari, a girl struggling to find her way in life, meets Sarashe, a girl trying her best to embark on an expedition to Antarctica in search for her mother.
Inspired by her tenacity, Maru joins Shirase and the two plan their eventual journey. Along the way, they meet two more girls, Hinata and Yuzuki, who have their own reasons to leave Japan, and they join them as well. And thus, the party of four girls heading south make their way to Antarctica, where they intend to conquer their fears and our hearts. Oh boy, where do I start? The brilliant writing of the girls, the amazing animation of Antarctica, the soul-crushing and heart-hardening twist of the plot? Or maybe I should start on the charismatic comedy, or the gorgeous lighting, or the free-flowing atmosphere, or the way too clever themes for a simple slice of life show, or the... Well, I guess it only makes sense to talk about from my perspective. So when this show first aired, I was in community college, way before I upgraded to big boy college. And in my time, I still had no idea what I wanted to do in my life. So in my usual browsing of seasonal shows, I came across A Place Further Than the Universe, and it eventually became my lunchtime show. But one day, I wasn't eating lunch, but instead was waiting on an appointment with a career counselor. And in my wait, I watched one particular episode of A Place Further Than the Universe, and well, what can I say? It reaffirmed my love for anime and just gave me a new drive for what I wanted to do, to reach this point in life where I just wanted to talk about anime. If you know what episode in particular I'm talking about, then you know it's an emotionally tough one to get through. But even then, it's a strong message to get across to everyone, let alone a college student not fully in the know of what they want. The show is full of that questioning, and it's embraced in the comforting, funny, warm, melancholic, and sometimes scary confrontation of that pivotal thought of would I rather have doubts or would I rather have regrets? At least that's how I saw it. I say that, but I firmly believe that any student can watch this and can somehow gain a little courage to take that all-important step in wherever they strive to achieve. I can't emphasize how terrified I was to tell my parents what I wanted to do, and even now, there are those moments where I don't quite understand myself or my intentions in writing scripts or making edits. But even so, it's in the character and strength of stories like A Place Further Than the Universe and these other anime that I can proudly say that I don't regret working for that seemingly useless degree. Even in overpowering my cynicism, existentialism, and fears, I can assure myself that I gave it the old college try. And I hope that you too can leave your worries behind a little for a pretty cool journey.
And that's my top 10 anime to watch in college. Hopefully you can give one or two a try at least, and let me know what you think. Or if my degree is useless because I'm a dum-dum with dum-dum opinions. Again, showing off my English minor there. But now, if you'll excuse me, actually, the next video is the 25th episode of this series. Maybe I should do something special. But then again, this video is already pretty dang long. Maybe I should just take it easy next time. Damn it.